All right, so we're going to go over the song Pardon Me by Incubus. But before we get started, let's begin with some background information on the band. So, Incubus is actually from here, from California. They're an American rock band from Calabasas, California. They formed in 1991 when the members were in high school. The founding members were vocalist Brandon Boyd, lead guitarist Mike Eisinger, and drummer Jose Pasillas. The band also released a single that we're about to look at, Pardon Me, in 1999, but it was initially not well received by radio stations. They didn't want to play it, and a lot of it has to do with the style being a little different, but mostly because of the lyrics. It just didn't click with people at first. Members Brandon and Mike decided to perform a live acoustic version of the song at a few radio stations who were showing interest in the song, and this ended up spreading word of the song. So when people heard the acoustic version, they found out about the song's existence, and then they wanted to hear the original studio recording. So many radio stations began to play the acoustic version, including influential LA radio station K Rock, which still exists to this day. After the new interest in the song, radio stations began playing the studio version shortly after. All right, so now let's just dive right into the lyrics. So besides the intro where they repeat "So pardon me while I burst" a couple times, there is the first verse. Now the first verse of the song says, "A decade ago, I never thought I would be at 23 on the verge of spontaneous combustion. Woe is me." So, woe is me is an ironic or humorous exclamation of sorrow or distress. So think, well, look at me, pity me, like, oh, I'm so sad, so sad, you know, woe is me. Um, so a decade ago, 10 years, that's a decade, when he was 13 then, he never thought that he would be at that age on the verge, so about to spontaneously combust. But what is that? Well, spontaneous combustion is a phenomenon where something explodes without warning and without a source for the explosion. So generally this happens with things that are inanimate, so not humans. It just happens with objects. The concept of spontaneous human combustion is not one that's backed up by science. It's usually there is a source for the explosion. It doesn't happen for no reason, but the evidence ends up burning away. I know that's pretty graphic. Um, but so, even though it's not really something that happens to humans, this topic is brought up in numerous pieces of literature. Like, people make reference to spontaneous combustion. Now, sometimes that reference is literal, like they think that's actually going to happen, but most of the time it's hyperbole almost. It's an example of someone feeling so under so much pressure and just so fed up with things almost that they're like, I'm so angry or I'm so fed up, I could just spontaneously combust. So the rest of verse 1 says, "But I guess that it comes with the territory, an ominous landscape of never ending calamity. I need you to hear, I need you to see that I have had all that I can take, and exploding seems like a definite possibility to me." So, ominous means a sign of something bad to come, and calamity means a disaster. So, what he's kind of saying here is, well, I guess this is just how things go. The territory or the scene that I'm in is a dark scene, and it seems like something bad is going to happen, and it does. So, I guess that it comes with the territory. Nah, I guess that's just how things are, right? And ominous, so a sign of something bad to come. Like when you see dark clouds in the sky, that is an ominous sign of things to come. A storm is probably going to happen, right? And when that happens in movies or books, you're like, well, if it's the dark sky ahead, that's a sign that something bad is going to happen in this scene. So, an ominous landscape of never ending calamity is basically this is a dark, dark piece of imagery about the bad things to come and the disaster that is to come. So he's just so fed up with everything and the world around him. So he says, I need you to hear, I need you to see that I've had all that I can take. He needs you to know that he has reached his limit. And exploding seems like a definite possibility to me. That's him reaching his limit, and he's just warning you, I think I'm gonna burst. Like, I don't think I can contain this any longer. All right, and now here we've got the chorus, which is, so pardon me while I burst into flames. I've had enough of the world and its people's mindless games. So pardon me while I burn and rise above the flame. Pardon me, I'll never be the same. So pardon me is, a courteous greeting, right? Oh, excuse me, pardon me, right? Um, but here it seems a little bit tongue in cheek. It seems a little bit sarcastic because you wouldn't say, oh, pardon me while I burst into flames. You'd say, pardon me, can I scoot on past you? Pardon me, can I get through here? Pardon me, can I ask you a question? But not pardon me while I burst into flames. So that's a distinct contrast. So obviously he's being a little bit sarcastic here. And when he says, while I burst into flames, he's referencing the spontaneous combustion line from before. So he's saying, I'm about to explode. Well, now I've exploded, right? I've had enough of the world and its people's mindless games. So he's saying he's done with people playing games and not thinking about their actions, so mindless, and their consequences. So pardon me while I burn and rise above the flame. Well, he's burning, but rising above the flame does give us some distinct imagery. Think of maybe an animal you've heard of that rises from the flame or rises from the ashes. Think about that. I won't tell you what it is, but just think. Pardon me, I'll never be the same. So he's woken up. He will not be the same person. He cannot possibly be the same person. All right, so did you think about the animal? It's a phoenix, if you didn't already know. All right, so verse 2. So it starts off with, now 2 days ago, I was having a look in a book and I saw a picture of a guy fried up above his knees. So he was reading a book and he saw a picture of a guy fried up above his knees. Well, if you think about war and if you think about explosions like we're talking about, think about what that image might actually be of. All right, I'm not going to analyze this part for you, but I want you to think about that. He was reading a book, we'll say a history book, and he saw a picture of a guy fried up above his knees. What might that be an image of? It is a little bit dark, but think about that. All right, so before we get into this, I'm going to explain to you what a portmanteau is. Not a poor man's toe, but a portmanteau. So that is a word that is formed by combining two different terms to create a new one. So think breakfast plus lunch equals brunch. Think of web and log. When you combine those together, it was weblog, and that got shortened to blog. That's how we got the term that we have today, blog, right? And then if you had a video weblog, that gets shortened to vlog. So that's a portmanteau, all right? Now, combustication is not a real word that we're going to see in this line. So what could it mean? What words were likely combined to make it? All right, so verse 2 continues on by saying, I said, I can relate because lately I've been thinking of combustication as a welcomed vacation from the burdens of the planet Earth, like gravity, hypocrisy, and the perils of being in 3D, but thinking so much differently. So, to explain, a burden is, to hold or carry something heavy or to accept or deal with something difficult. So, the challenges, the weight that you have to carry. Hypocrisy is behavior that contradicts, so goes against what one claims to believe or feel. So if you're saying, oh, I care so much about the environment, but you're littering all the time, that would make you a hypocrite and you'd be practicing hypocrisy, right? And perils are serious and immediate dangers. So what this is basically saying is, you know, he can relate because he's been thinking of the word combustication, that's not really a word, as a welcomed vacation. So, whatever this word might mean, which you're going to come up with, um, this would be a welcomed release from all the horrible, deep, heavy things that he has to deal with on Earth. And those things are things like gravity, huh? Hypocrisy, okay, so people being hypocrites, and the perils, so the dangers of being in 3D. Now, what could that mean? Being in 3D. Well, humans are in 3D. We're living in 3D. So maybe it's the dangers of being human, but thinking so much differently. So being awake, being aware, and not being the same as everyone else. So the dangers of being a free thinker, I guess, in the world. That's what he's talking about. And then the chorus just repeats until the end. So if you're interested in listening to the actual song, there is the music video link there. Or you could look up the acoustic version if you prefer songs that aren't fully backed by a band. All right, make sure that you analyze this song a little bit more than what I showed you. Okay, but I just wanted to explain at least some parts that might be confusing to you. All right.